Hi everybody, I just wanted to take a second before we begin to prepare you and to acknowledge that I do begin this video about a Nintendo game with an anecdote about the first time that I played a Nintendo game. I know, it's cliche, it's what have you, but I promise there's a point to it, so just, be prepared, be ready, please come at this with an open mind, and it's going to happen right after whatever this thing is happens.
I think it was August of 1998. I have a memory of entering the door at the house of the woman who provided daycare to me and about 4 other children, and being asked by my friend Cole if I wanted to go play Nintendo. Specifically, it was Duck Hunt. Upstairs in the bedroom of the woman's son, who at that point had moved out and was midway through college, was a Nintendo Entertainment System where 2 other kids were playing the aforementioned game. I don't know if I ever touched the gun that day, but I remember we soon tired of the duck hunting game. It's not a complex title by any means, and we switched to the other game stored on the cartridge, Super Mario Bros. Now, the imperfect nature of childhood memories means that I don't know whether this was my first experience with a video game or if the first time that I played Sonic the Hedgehog on my grandfather's Sega Genesis came before that, but regardless, Super Mario Bros. Has been a part of my experience with video games from the beginning. Normally, I don't like it when Nintendo fans pontificate about their childhood experiences with Nintendo games, but I'm just using it as a point of reference here for this fact. I have been playing Super Mario Bros. Since I've started playing video games. I have never known video games without having the framework of Super Mario Bros. And it's continued through the years. I received a Game Boy Color for my birthday in 2000 with a copy of Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, which is how I first played most of the game. When I bought a used NES with lawn mowing money in the summer of 2006, I went on to buy its cartridge. I would spend 500 Wii points, my first 500 Wii points, on the game once I had that console in my possession. I had it in many other iterations as well. The Game Boy Advance release, that Super Mario All-Stars release on the Wii for the 25th anniversary, on my Nintendo 3DS still, because I bought it before they dropped the price and they gave you 20 free games as an apology or something. Obviously, I have a lot of love for the game, but more importantly, I know it really well. I know the route I take through playing the game, through each level, where all the stuff is. I was really very stuck in my ways with this game, in fact, at least until I tried Super Mario Bros. 35 this past weekend. Now, because of the way that this game is set up, something very significant to me came up, and I think I just have to show you what I mean in order to communicate it. Here is a normal playthrough of 1-1 for me in Super Mario Bros. Alright, so I start off, I hit the Goomba, I don't even try to get the coins here, but I do get the mushroom. And then from there I jump from pipe to pipe. I don't always get on the 3rd pipe, I just kind of skip those Goombas, but I do get the one up here. From there I get the fire flower here. Then from there I try to go hide just to avoid the Goombas that are on the ground here. Try to hit that Koopa with a fireball as I come down. Jump those guys, and just kind of jump my way to the finish here. Don't really interact with these last 2 Goombas. Up to the top of these stairs, and hit the flagpole. And that's how it goes. And here I am playing 1-1 in Super Mario Bros. 35. I start by making sure, first thing, outside of stomping the Goomba, I make sure that I get all of these coins that I can here, at least getting 1 or 2 of them. Then from there, I try to stomp on all of these Goombas, trying to, if you stay in the air long enough, you get a combo for it. Still get the 1-up, of course. Here I just try to kill as many of these enemies as I can, again, because you get the time bonus for it. Then once I get the fire flower, I still go up here, but I make sure on the way down that I pick up this star, because the star allows me to just kind of run through all of these enemies going through here. From there, I will, effectively jump my way to the ground, but making sure to defeat any of the enemies in my way between where I am and the end of the stage. The thing I recognize is that I never really get that star. I just never really have gone for it, and I only ever get those Goombas between the pipes on accident if I miss a jump. I rarely get those coins near the beginning, and I've played like that for years. Like, the knowledge of how I play the first level of Super Mario Bros. Basically had calcified in the back of my brain. But this game has me playing it differently. What a strange sensation. It feels like I suddenly had to decide to drive with both feet on the pedals. Super Mario Bros. 35 got me to play Super Mario Bros. Differently. It got me to see and interact with a game I know the way that I know the layout of, like, my childhood home differently. And I guess I just never really thought that would happen. So here's another thing. In Super Mario Bros. Deluxe for the Game Boy Color, which was my first experience really with the game, once you'd completed a stage, you could just automatically choose to go to that stage. This meant that, though I was not great at consistently making it deep into the game on one playthrough, as long as I beat a level just once, I could play some of the levels that were fairly deep into the game. Others, though, I just couldn't really get through. The one that I remember the most was 6-3, which had the black background and the gray trees. A lot of those platforms that fall downwards when you stand on them always kind of moved me to panic. I would just sort of freeze, and then I would die. So I never really got to see 6-4. In 5-4, it was the big fire stick that always got me. Then, of course, there were the last three levels of the game, 8-2, 8-3, and 8-4, all of which were also inaccessible to me. Of course, over time I became good enough to get to each of the levels that I wanted to go to, and for a while I was pretty good at getting all the way through the game. So by then, pretty much every level was accessible, and really none of Super Mario Bros. Has felt inaccessible to me for probably a little over a decade and a half. Anyway, the way that this game, Super Mario Bros. 35, is structured, where it decides which level comes for you next, seemingly arbitrarily, has again locked much of the game away from me. Normally, if I want to visit 3-1, I don't have any trouble doing so. Just hit that 1-2 warp zone. But in this game, I barely ever see 3-1. I'm at the mercy of the game itself whether or not I ever end up there. It'll routinely give me the first 8 levels of the game, but past that it's very rare to see anything else. Like, I've never interacted with Lakitu, or seen one of them big mushroom trees in the several games of Super Mario 35 that I've played so far. To be withheld levels from Super Mario Bros. For the first time in a long while, that's kind of strange. Not bad by any means, it's just a scarcity I haven't had to deal with in a very long time. I think that really most of my opinion about this game can be boiled down to, wow, I never saw the game like this. That's kind of neat. And what more can I ask of a free game like this? I gotta tell you, there is a really unique feeling that you get out of this game, and to a certain extent you got it out of Tetris 99 when you get down to the late stages of a round. At the beginning of each round, and I'll get to this more later, there is a really neat moment when you and 34 other players go through the exact same Super Mario Bros. Level at the exact same time. But as the round progresses, we all end up in different spots. Some of us die, some of us go faster than others, some of us take different routes at the 1-2 warp zone, and eventually you look around and everybody's going through a vastly different experience. I compare it to a marathon somewhat, like how you see this big mass of people at the beginning of the race, but by the time that the first person crosses the finish line, the herd is pretty much thinned out. Some people are out of the race entirely, and those who are still in the race are all at different points in the journey. Then, as you continue to play and more of the group thins out in Mario 35, you get down to only a few of you, and you become aware of yourself as a part of a small group of elite Mario players. You feel kind of special when you break into the top 10, then as more players start to drop out once you get down to the last 5, you all start sending enemies each other's way, and you see a big group of like 20 enemies up in front of you, but you pick up a star and you just run right through them, and then like 10 seconds later the person you've been targeting drops out, and you know that was your doing, and then eventually you notice it's down to you and one other person, and that's... wow. I realize myself that I never spectate once I die in Super Mario 35. I don't really care to watch to the end. The only time I ever really watched to the end in a Battle Royale sort of game like this was the brief time that I played Fortnite because I wanted to figure out what everybody who was good at the game was doing. But I just don't do that in this game. Fundamentally, I know how to win at this game. I just have to play Mario well, so I don't feel the need to watch and learn. I suspect this is the same for most others, which means that basically me and the other person left playing are the only two people in the world who know that we're doing this. We are the only people invested in this game anymore. Of the 7 or 8 billion people in the world, I'm not going to Google it, it's me and this other person who care about who wins this game of Super Mario 35. Then even more so, at that point, you really sort of run out of enemies to throw at each other. You don't get the big collection of guys in a row to knock out, so there's really this sort of peacefulness to the experience. It's just me and them, and we're just playing Mario at the same time. One of us is going to win, and the other one is going to lose. And to be fair, generally I lose. Remember that basically since the beginning of Mario, the Super Mario Bros. Multiplayer experience was asynchronous. Short of a race mode in Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, Mario Multiplayer has been pretty much limited to players taking turns after each life. Super Mario Bros. 35 effectively is also an asynchronous experience with a few offensive aspects. And I really like the way that they've managed to work these into the game, though. It incentivizes you to play the game aggressively, which for me is playing the game differently than normal. I need to know where potential enemies are going to arise and prepare myself to take them out. My personal bread and butter is getting the star in 1-2, then just running through the enemies between that and the end of the level. I don't know necessarily who I'm attacking when I do this, nor do I really care, but I know I'm attacking somebody. In a way, I'm not really playing against anybody. I'm playing Mario, and some people sometimes make it tougher for me to succeed. I still find many ways to die wholly of my own volition. I've died on the same pit in 2-4 like 30 times through no effort of anybody else. But this game is stuck somewhere in this kind of liminal zone between synchronous and asynchronous multiplayer, and that's kind of neat. Speaking of liminality, each time I boot this game up, I'm reminded of the fact that this game will go away one day, specifically on March 31st of 2021. The decision by Nintendo to have this game running on a limited access was widely ridiculed and criticized by players and media alike, but I don't know necessarily how I feel about it. Yes, the idea of a game coming out and being stricken is definitely frustrating, especially in a case like this, where it really seems like Nintendo probably just doesn't want to keep paying to keep servers running in March once everybody moves on, rather than in typical cases like with Scott Pilgrim, Alan Wake, and Yaris, I guess, wherein copyright laws forcibly remove the game from players' hands. But I'm under no delusion that I'll still be playing this fairly one-note experience 6 months from now. And for the sake of other players, I'd like them to still have the ability to do it, but on a personal, kind of selfish level, I'm just not that worried. And in a way, I don't know, this kind of forced scarcity in a free game like this actually makes me a little nostalgic for the nights I spent on the game 1 vs. 100 on the Xbox 360. 1 vs. 100 was initially released in November of 2009. It was an interesting spin on trivia that, actually, now that I think of it, has some weird parallels to this game. Basically, one player would be chosen to answer trivia questions against a field of 100 other players who were also answering trivia questions. Fundamentally, that's not really that different from the experience of playing Mario by yourself against 34 other people, I think at least. Anyway, it was kind of a neat experience. I remember it fondly, being in these kind of small rooms with a couple other players, having a voice chat going on through the interim sections of the game. But the game required a lot of activity on Microsoft's side, it seemed like. There was a virtual host, and they had to keep coming up with new questions, and I think after a period of time, people just kind of sort of lost interest, and the game was cancelled in March 2010. Now, in 2020, if you want to play a game of 1 vs. 100 on the Xbox, you just can't. And unless something significant changes, which I do suppose is completely possible, this will be the case with Super Mario Bros. 35. I think nostalgically about my days playing 1 vs. 100. I never really got the chance to get sick of it, it never got old to me, and thus, I miss it. I imagine the same thing will happen with Mario 35. Perpetually, it's going to be stuck in this moment of October and November of 2020 in my memory. To be fair, I don't imagine that I'll look back at this period of time generally with the fondness that I do the early part of 2010, but this is a nice little kind of kernel of something that's going to be stuck in this relatively difficult time forever in my memory, and that's kind of neat. Okay, this is going to be a short one, but there's a little trampoline at the end of 2-1 which apparently interacts with Goombas like this. Isn't that kind of neat? Never thought about how a Goomba would interact with a little trampoline like that, but now I know what happens, and it's all thanks to Super Mario Bros. 35. At the beginning of each round of Super Mario Bros. 35, as every player starts on the same level, there is this fantastic sensation that I feel looking around the entire screen. I and the other 34 people in every little window around me are playing the same level at the same time. This really resonates with me right now, in October of 2020, because I would do anything to be able to be in a group of people all doing the same thing at the same time right now, 7 months down the road in COVID-19. And you know, I've really soured on the concept of virtual facsimiles trying to replace the feeling of coming together the way that the Zoom event explosion of April and May did. I've really soured in a lot of ways on the whole entire idea of the internet to an extent right now. It's a combination of an inundation of information that's thrown at you at a rate never before dealt with in human history, a series of manipulative social media sites which have perverted the idea of interpersonal connections for the sake of ad revenue. It's every time that I was in the middle of what felt like a good moment during a teletherapy appointment that was derailed by the Zoom call buffering. I think once this is kind of over, I might just go, live in an apartment where all I have is a mattress and a dresser and spend all my time at various public spaces from wake until sleep. But every now and then, that sense of wonder about what the internet can achieve wriggles its way back into my life. I get reminded of the happier days that I spent online. When I'd stay up late into the night playing Mario Kart 7 on my 3DS online, when it was mostly just me and a bunch of Japanese players on the tracks. When my friend Sam and I uploaded a YouTube video at 10 p.m. one night in 2008, went to sleep, and woke up the next morning to see that 10 people had watched it overnight. Overhearing people's strange conversations while playing 1 vs. 100 in 2009. All of that feels, and to an extent was, so long ago, and now the internet feels like a space that I dislike as a result of social media's shift towards over-manipulation, and that I resent as a result of the way that it's failed to adequately take the place of the human-to-human interaction that I really crave over these past few months. But something like this, when I see me and every other person on my screen interacting with that first Goomba, some of us dying to it, others evading it, others stomping it, I don't know, that gets to me. That really gets to me. 35 years on, this game that has touched so many, the one which spawned one of gaming's most important franchises and launched the profile of a world-renowned cross-media mascot, it's bringing us together again, precisely at the time when it's most difficult to do so. And I appreciate it for that, and I guess that's kind of all I have to say.